Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to City Skylines. Today we have another Let's Build, and this is the City of Tomorrow. This is a build that I struggled with for a few days. Not specifically what you're seeing right now, but the concept of this is something that I actually had a really hard time with. And it's the first time I've had a hard time with anything in City Skylines. I usually, spend a bit of time and get over a problem, but this was just difficult because there were a lot of different interpretations of this build that I had come up with. I had one that was very nearly a video, and I just scrapped it at the last minute because I really didn't like the end result. So there were a lot of different versions of this. The one we've settled on here is vastly different to what the original was, and that's probably for the best. But what you're seeing me do here is basically create the shape of the entire city. This doesn't have the scale of the tiered city before it. And I guess it probably doesn't really have the scale of the Canals Town either, or maybe even the good old Casino Strip. But that's because, in my mind, a lot of the tall buildings that you're going to see are incredibly densely populated in and of themselves rather than the entire city. It's basically, you have to imagine this is a futuristic city. All of these tall buildings are packed with people, and that's kind of how it works. There's a lot of one-way, there's actually, I say a lot, there's two one-way roads in this. The one around the edge is the highway, and that's the way into the city. And then the road that the highway actually ends up connecting to is going to become a 6-lane one-way road, actually going the opposite direction. And just in case anyone's wondering, this is a right-hand drive city, which is not something I do all that often. I prefer left-hand drive because I live in the UK, so I can relate to that. But whatever the case, I am actually quite pleased with how this build turned out. As you will see in the cinematics towards the end, it's just interesting looking. It really is. We've got this lovely sort of brass-colored globe thing there in the middle of it, which is actually in such a stark contrast to everything else that you're going to see in this city, because everything else is giant white and grey and concrete buildings, and then we have this sort of goldeny, coppery brass globe right in the middle of all of it. And I should mention, I can't actually take credit for this entire build. Well, the build I can, but the look of it I can't take credit for. In the description below, there's going to be a link to a collection of buildings and all that stuff, which were all made by one guy. And his name has completely slipped my mind, but they were all made by him, and it's entirely down to the existence of those assets and those buildings that this entire City of Tomorrow came about. It's without those, it wouldn't have the aesthetic that it has, it wouldn't look futuristic, and it would look somewhat boring and very strange. But I am definitely happy with the outcome of this. So let's talk about the inspirations for this a little bit. This is somewhat inspired by Walt Disney's experimental prototype Community of Tomorrow, which is Epcot, E-P-C-O-T, for those of you that are curious. And I actually saw a comment on the tiered city build, which was that it reminded the commenter of the Epcot project, and I was really impressed that there were other people that were watching that and thinking, it kind of does. And that's actually why I steered well clear of just copying the Epcot design, because I didn't want to, I didn't want it to look too similar to the tiered city, which interestingly failed miserably because this is also a big circle, but this one doesn't go up, so we've got that going for us. This one actually stays nice and flat, which, is so much better. But, whatever the case, the experimental prototype Community of Tomorrow was designed by Walt Disney. It was unfinished, and it was designed to be, quote-unquote, a real city that would never cease to be a blueprint of the future. And basically, the plan for this was it was to be a city that was sort of ideal and kind of utopian, and was the, I guess, the pinnacle of American engineering and living, and what's the Yeah, it was designed to stimulate American corporations to come up with new ideas for urban living. It was a city ahead of its time. It never existed. It was a concept. Unfortunately, Walt Disney died in 1966, and the property that was going to be this community of tomorrow became Walt Disney World Resort in 1971. Then a theme park based on the idea opened in 1982, which is also called Epcot. That's actually something I tried as well. I took the layout of the Epcot theme park and tried to apply the concept for the city to that layout, and it failed miserably. I actually have that built, and I'm considering making a sort of very short video just sort of showing you a failed Let's Build, because I did tweet about that Let's Build. I think I tweeted out a picture of it and said that it'll be coming the next day, and then I followed that tweet up saying, actually, you know what, I don't like it, I'm going to do it again, and that's why there wasn't a Let's Build earlier in the week and why it's only coming up today. But I'm very tempted to make a video on that, just showing off the sort of failed Let's Build, because while I'm not entirely happy with the completed I guess product, the end result, I really like the middle of it. So, you know, I may show that off, and I probably shouldn't talk about another Let's Build in this video, especially one that you may never see, huh? Whatever the case, that's something I'm saying a lot now. Great. That's another thing to add to my ever-decreasing vocabulary. Beautiful. But whatever the case, we are just going about there and adding in a bunch of services. Those sort of dome things are the water. Those big buildings in the corners are for heating, and the smaller buildings in the inside corners are garbage disposal, and they don't actually pollute the ground, which is fantastic. I decided to use the trams that came with Snowfall as I guess a main mode of public transport. There's also one single bus line in this city as well, which is sort of going against the idea of the prototype community of tomorrow, considering the concept for that was that it would sort of have the perfect public transport systems and all that stuff. So that's, again, you know, me and perfect public transport and perfect roads really don't go hand in hand, so I don't think anyone's necessarily expecting that from a ConflictNerd video anyway. I don't think that's... If you've been here for 5 minutes, you're probably aware of the fact that it's not what I do, because I'm a bit of a scrub. Even with, and this is the thing, people have said, how have you got 300 hours in Cities Skylines, and you're still bad at it? Dude, I could put 300 hours into Dota, and I would still be bad at it. I have put over 1,000 hours into GTA Online, and I'm alright at that. It took 1,000 hours for me to be alright at GTA Online, so bear with me. Anyway, what we're doing here is going ahead and adding in a bunch of mountains, and this is something I absolutely wanted to do with this, mainly because in my mind, I love the idea of coming along the highway and seeing these huge mountains, and then there's one entrance into the middle of the mountains where you just have this kind of isolated, futuristic city. And that was actually something I'd drawn some stuff out for this. I'd drawn some stuff out for the plans for the original design, the sort of more Epcot inspired, the more, I will say inspired, and this would be Epcot inspired. The other stuff I was doing was sort of taking that and trying to make it in cities. So this is the inspired one. But whatever the case, I did a lot of drawing for this build to see what would work, and the drawing I settled on was very simple. It was a circle with a bigger circle around it. In the small circle, I wrote city. In the bigger circle, I wrote mountains. And that was the blueprint for this one. And you know what? It bloody worked. But yeah, we're going ahead and adding in all the mountains, as you've seen. Just tidying them up, making them look a little bit less smooth everywhere. And I think, yeah, we're going to go ahead and start adding in some more roads to these big empty spaces so that we can get some high-density housing in there. And you'll notice the ground is sort of yellow there. I think that's fertile land to do that, because I don't know, I just thought it looked interesting. I thought the very just standard green grass was a little bit dull, so I decided to go with the yellow there, because it looks funky, I guess. It looks funky. That's what it looks. We'll go with that. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, just adding in all of these pedestrian paths here to, let people get about these residential zones. They don't all say residential, by the way. This one at the bottom becomes commercial. It was almost industrial. Then the zone up the other end of the city where we have the tram station and the 2 bus stations becomes industrial, because that's a thing we're going to need. And just FYI, I am aware I didn't use those bus stations. Those are completely cosmetic. That's all they're there for. Just adding in a bunch of schools there. Again, those are very futuristic. If you want to see what all of those buildings are I've placed, again, you can go to the link in the description and it will take you to a Steam collection on the workshop for City Skylines, which will give you a rundown of what all of the buildings are. There we go, just watching all of the buildings grow. And it's now time to add a bunch of trees. Something I actually used in this build was a lot of cherry trees, because I figured it would be a great contrast to all of the white and blue, which is the futuristic buildings, to just have some very bright pink. And it worked. Very bright pink, very light pink, and some reds. And you do legitimately get a very interesting contrast through doing that. And it is slowly becoming one of my favorite things to do in City Skylines. And I've been doing it in my Snowfall Let's Play as well, because it's very grey. Because snow and concrete. I've just been using a bunch of these trees which don't have snow on them to just really create some contrast, and I think it looks excellent. I really enjoy doing it, so it's something you're probably going to see a lot of in my Let's builds in the future. Even if I'm not doing futuristic builds, I'm probably going to use a lot of very colorful trees to complement and contrast the various colors of road and building and stuff like that. Something we're doing here, we're just a little cut there. We're just gonna add a mountain, a river to the. We're gonna add a mountain to our mountain. We're adding a small river to the mountain, which I actually wanted to do originally, and I didn't do when I put the mountains up to begin with, because I didn't think I could do it, but I figured I'll have it be a little stream that comes down the side of the mountain and then sort of goes through the mountains here, and you'll never really see it go through the mountains. I still made it look alright, but you still don't really see it, so it's okay that it's a ridiculously unrealistic sort of space that it's going through there. I would love to be able to make tunnels in City Skylines. I would absolutely like tunnels for water would be excellent, because that would be so useful. I could have probably faked it if I used a couple of water sources rather than having, the one water source for this whole river. Have it look like it's going into its own little tunnel and then have it come out elsewhere using a water source. I could have done that, but I didn't. Whatever the case, that is going to be it for this Let's Build. There will be another one this coming Sunday. If you have any suggestions for things that I should build in City Skylines, leave it in the comments below. If you liked the video, like the video. If you disliked it, dislike it. Whatever the case, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it. Thank you kindly for watching. This has been City Skylines, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.